Welcome to a special live session today that we're hosting where we deep dive into the strategies and structures for portfolio innovation. I'm Shruti Prakash, your co host for the AMA discussion, and I'm thrilled to have Simone Cicero join us today. Simone is the founder of Boundaryless and he has extensive experience in planning and implementing platform and portfolio strategies across multiple industries and organizations from around the world. He's also the facilitator for the strategies and structures for portfolio innovation session. So there's no one better to take up this AMA session with and learn more about what this training could mean for you. As most of you know, at Boundaryless, we create open source frameworks for platform design and entrepreneurial organization development. And we also support a global community of organizations, institutions, and individuals through the workshops, trainings, and consulting services that we provide. We've been at the forefront of this for over a decade now, and I'm excited to be a part of this journey and help gather as many questions that you may have. So, before we get started, I would like Simone to introduce himself and also tell us a little bit more about the topic.
Thank you, Shruti. It's always great to run these sessions with you and for our community. For those that don't know me, I'm currently the CEO of Boundaryless. Originally created the platform design toolkit more or less 10 years ago now. Basically, we started this journey 10 years ago, helping companies design their platform strategies in terms of products, digital products, and solutions that they brought to market. And increasingly within time, we started to let's say engage with organizational matters. So not just how do you make new products, but also how do you organize yourself in this journey. And I would say that this course that we introduced today is a bit of a culmination of several years of study and prototyping and working with our customers and adopters on this. And we are also starting to increasingly release this as an open source framework as we did in the past. It's partially also already available because the listeners to this webinar will probably know that we already have an organizational framework already available, which is called the 3EO, that stands for Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Enabling Organization Framework. And this training largely mixes the work that we have been doing in product strategy and organizational strategy. So I'm really eager to tell you more about this.
Thank you, Simone. So, maybe we can start with the presentation.
Yeah. So I'm going to present my screen. Let me see if I can make it work. Okay, you should see my screen now. Can you just check, Shruti?
Yeah, it works, Simone.
Okay. So I'm going to give a brief introduction of the course topic, so that potential attendees will know how what to expect from this course. So first of all, let's say that this course kind of acknowledges and takes place into a currently very flowing market environment. So we are seeing a lot of explosions in vertical software and in B2B. So it's kind of the age where marketplaces and SaaS are finally really rebuilding how companies run themselves in business. So there's gonna be there's also a lot of a lot cheaper. Building technologies is becoming a lot cheaper. So essentially, thanks to all these technologies that are emerging, it's becoming much easier for organizations and companies to build products and services and package them and bring them to the market for niche needs. So essentially, what we are seeing is companies that have maybe complex workflows that adopt several softwares, and they mix it with each other and build their own representation of the workflow. So essentially, it's really an age where software and digital are transforming B2B, the B2B space at the end. Um, In terms of how this is happening, we must say that this is happening largely through platforms and ecosystems. So many of these largest software companies that are developing these kind of B2B softwares have built also a large ecosystem around them. Ecosystems are normally intended to be, for example, apps or plugin marketplaces. And increasingly, I would say these kind of vendors also feature service marketplaces. So increasingly, not just independent third-party software providers can build a plugin that plugs into an existing app or existing solution, SaaS solution, but also service providers, for example, consultants or designers, can use these marketplaces that are built on top of these suites of products and provide their services. So if you look at the numbers, you will see that 86% of the 50 largest software companies at the moment have this services marketplace as well on top of their software. So to say that ecosystems and platforms are becoming a massive channel to market for most of companies. In the background, of course, we see this emergence of no-code tools, AI that provide increasingly solutions to interconnect the pieces of the workflow. So to some extent, they are liberating companies in terms of letting them try new stuff and in the I would say making them faithful that over the long term they can integrate the new stuff that they play into the system, into the workflow that they have that is maybe built around several other software. Um, in terms of design and product thinking, what we are seeing is that companies that design solutions, so products, service bundles, and so on, they need to think about their solutions integrated with others in the market. So, for example, we recently had Scott Brinker and Kelly Sarabin on our podcast, and who are from HubSpot, and they explain how in the state of 2024, State of Platforms 2024, the report that they recently released, they have seen finally a massive switch of focus towards the topic of integration. So essentially, companies are thinking more in terms of my solution needs to integrate with others when they think about distributing their solutions, but also they're thinking of my solution needs to integrate with others when they think about their solution being at the center of a customer context. So in very few words, now when you develop something for the market, you really need to think about how this piece of software or solution will interoperate with others. So you need to be attentive to what Scott called the idea of a joint customer need. So a customer need that can be served not only with your solution, but also with the interoperability of your solutions with others. This kind of reflects in terms of growth strategy. So a lot of companies are now starting to understand that it's not just more about sales and empowering your sales accounts and pushing them to generate enterprise account customers, but also they acknowledge that products can be drivers of growth themselves. So they, for example, can be designed in a way that can onboard one user and transform this user into an enterprise account within time, maybe by adding features or adding users, different type of users. But also another point that is emerging very widely is the idea of what we call ecosystem-led growth. So essentially, what we said before is that you can distribute your solution increasingly through platforms that other companies are running. So, for example, if I bring a new piece of software or solution on the market and I put this as a plugin into, I don't know, Salesforce or Stripe or Shopify, whatever, this is going to be a major opportunity for me to reach new customers. So Growth is not just about sales, it's not just about product led, but it's also increasingly about partner led or in general ecosystem led strategies. So generally, what we see is that the world is shifting towards an idea of optionality. So companies are increasingly thinking in terms of multiplicity of offerings. So companies are no more about just one thing. And why? First of all, because in general, as we said before, if technology costs less and development costs less and integration is more easy and more effective, essentially the sustainable piece of software you can bring to the market is smaller. So you can serve more specific niches. And this means that as a company, you have to shift from the idea that you have one product into an idea that you build multiple products. And some of them can be small, some of them can be big, some of them can even become big enough to become platforms for other products or even for your own products. But in general, the idea is you have to build a diversity of solutions to really target the modern markets. Also, one thing that we are seeing is that the team becomes increasingly the new and pivotal element in the organization. So here I have a quote from OpenAI CEO. Oh my God, I have
Sam
I forgot
Altman.
Sam Alton. Sorry. Within this conversation, he was making a note towards making a reference towards the idea of one person unicorn. So the idea that one person can now build such a huge potential impact and company, also thanks to the possibility of AI. And we kind of see this reflected in the statistics. For example, if you look at these numbers, which are from the UK, you can see that the number of companies with no or employees or in general small employers is growing much versus the typically large employers. So this, of course, has different trends inside. So, for example, the growth of freelancing and so on. But the idea is, as a sole or small team, you can achieve massive impacts. Okay, so that's the idea. Um, it's also reflected to some extent with new tools that are emerging, new approaches. So, for example, if you look at a team that is building a marketplace of teams where you can, as a company, you can hire an external team very easily and integrate it into your organization. This is another signal that the team is becoming the really pivotal piece of the organization. So the unit, the team, a small thing that can achieve large impact and maybe run its own product strategy. So as a matter of fact, the company of the future needs to be about options, independent teams that can build products and get to the market almost independently. So if you ship your org chart, then what does it mean in terms of organizational model? So the meta message here is that organizations need to become much more horizontal, much more networked, much more product centric, and optionality needs to become a central element on how we develop strategy and organizational development. So in light of this, what is going to be the course focus? So in the course, we're going to focus on essentially four major things. One is the idea of mapping information and portfolios. So learning how to describe and map systems of multiple complex elements. Defining topologies internally. So when we say topology, essentially we mean how do you structure the organization in terms of unit types and the interactions that these units have between each other. The concept of unbundling and rebundling, so looking at a company and organization and say, okay, we are not organizing the right way, so we should reorganize, rebundle the company, the organization in a different way. And then the idea of taxonomies. So taxonomies as essentially as languages that a company can use both internally to sustain collaboration between the teams, but also externally, so to communicate better with customers and help customers understand the product portfolio and basically self-build their own in a way that connects nicely, a little bit like as Lego bricks would do. So we will learn that there is a process that starts from mapping information in the environment, mapping customer needs, understanding interfaces, and understanding how the internal capabilities that the company has can, through the interface that is normally a go-to-market interface, can connect with the environment and with customer needs. And we also will understand the underlying dynamics in terms of, for example, what a new technology means to a portfolio? How do you integrate these new technologies? When do you choose, for example, to stop developing something that is not differentiating for your company and just maybe use an externally available platform or technology or solution? And we're going to use a lot of tools as always when we do trainings about Boundaryless. We tend to work with tools that people can use. Of course, that's what we believe. That's our mission, to reduce barriers to this type of skills and capabilities. So we're going to use a lot of arena and ecosystem scans, which are from the platform design toolkit context. We're going to use wordlay maps. The wordlay maps are kind of ubiquitous tools for strategy that are now used widely across the board, and we have been using them eagerly in the last 10 years. And this is really the place where wordlay maps in our practice fit very well. This is just an example, of arena scans, or why we use the wordlay map, because as you may know, the wordlay map is a tool that gives you the possibility to describe human systems, activities, capabilities, pieces according to evolution and visibility to the user. So it's really a great way to describe value chains. And essentially, companies, when they deliver their value propositions to the market, when they respond to customers using their internal capabilities and products, they are not much different from a value chain. So they actually execute a value chain internally, or a value network, as we want to call it. But that's important to understand. So when you look at your company, you really need to understand how pieces connect to deliver the user value proposition. And that's what we do with these tools. So, for example, these are good examples of outcomes. So just a visual example of a typical outcome of a portfolio mapping process, where we map all the capabilities inside the organization, the products, the user needs. For example, we normally use colors to describe how pieces are distributed inside an organization, but I will be more specific later on with an example. So what is the point? The point is that, as we said, to really cope with this market, to thrive in this market, you need a different type of organization. And this is something that Mel Conway told us, like, I don't know, it was probably almost 50 years ago now, or maybe more, because if I remember well, this paper is from 69 or something like that. So how do you organize internally to deliver optionality, to deliver product centricity, to deliver composability? These are the questions we want to respond in the course. And certainly part of the picture is adopting a platform organization model. If you are not familiar with that, we recently released a manifesto of the platform organization. We released another article that explains how the platform organization is an actual evolution from the functional and the matrix organizational model, something that essentially helps companies to respond to the market much better, reduce silos, integrate with external partners much more easily, decentralized leadership, which is also very important. Again, teams, people, your teams are becoming much more powerful. So you have to distribute leadership and accountability and capacity to them. And gives massive advantages in terms of agility and innovation, integration with ecosystems, giving you a strategic flexibility. And it's been adopted by market leaders. For example, Hire, that is a long-term partner of Boundaryless, with whom we collaborate since more than 5 years now in the production of our 3O model, platform organization model. So, for example, in the platform organization, we will discuss in the course how what is the topology of the platform organization? So how do you create these micro entrepreneurial product units? How did you choose what to embed and scale through shared service platforms? The idea of industry platforms that are essentially investors, internal investors that can, feed this idea of optionality by investing into new experiments. So this is the basic topology of the organization we will use. But of course, inside the units, there will be another level of topology that we will discuss, which is the one of teams. And there are several topologies that are emerging as successful in the market. One is ubiquitously known team topologies, and we are very much I would say, enthusiastic about team topologies. We have been partnering and talking and researching, and I'm hopeful that I can disclose a surprise for the training, especially around team topologies. But there are other topologies that have been tested and tried. The Shopify model, everybody knows that. The product trio, also Reforge, and in general the startup world is coming up with this idea of differentiating type of teams and working to work dedicated to creating features and innovating the product, scaling, like similar to platform work, and growth, and product market fit expansion, which is more like innovation work. So we're going to discuss all these things, and at the end of the day, what we want to explain is that in a product centric unit-based organization, how do you organize inside a unit is very much related to the product you build. So, for example, if one of your product units is building a marketplace, okay, typically you will end up with having a supplier acquisition team and a demand acquisition team, and then a platform team that runs the marketplace technology. So these are just examples, but it's important that the participants to the course understand the mental models, right? It's not, don't expect you come to the course and then you know how to do that, but expect that you come to the course and then you know where to ask, where to research, what questions to ask, and some pillars and mental models that you can really use as a scaffold to develop your organizational evolution. So that's an example of how we normally, for example, rebundle the organization after an analysis. So you see that the map on the left has a lot of colors. For example, this is how the capabilities are distributed in the original organization. As you can see, there is little continuity in terms of domain consistency and coherence between the colors on the left. And on the right, you see the newly proposed regrouping, rebanding of the organization, which makes much more sense, in terms of domain continuity, and it will reduce cognitive load on your teams. It will reduce and make it much easier for them to, let's say, manage their own profit and loss, for example, and manage their own roadmaps. We will understand that much better. How do you, for example, you see the icons here in terms of what is a differentiating domain. So, for example, the ones with the start, or which is a general domain that you maybe can buy from the market instead of building internally. So this is the typical things that we're going to discuss in the course. How do you look into the existing organization, and how do you rebundle in a way that makes much more sense from the perspective of portfolio and product centricity? Lastly, we're going to discuss about taxonomies. And taxonomies are essentially the languages, as we said before, that you adopt as an organization to create a common conversation around what you build. So both internally to facilitate the exchanges between the teams, and externally to facilitate your customer understanding of your products, and to some extent, for example, push some type of some kind of DIY, do-it-yourself customization. So imagine that, for example, you are serving a customer that doesn't have much money to invest and wants to be more, maybe it's a small business, for example. For those type of things, for those type of customers which have maybe common needs and not very deep pockets, then maybe you can create self-configuration or DIY configurators. And to do so, you need to understand your products. You need to understand how your products connect with each other. You need to have a taxonomy. And essentially also internally, of course, you need to have the capability to give maps to your teams, and teams need to understand where they are in the organization, what are they building, what is their mission, how the products they are building connect with the others, right? And that's, of course, one of the aspects of taxonomies, but also taxonomies are essential in understanding grouping products, understanding when a product is sufficient on its own to be put on the market, controlling the total cost of ownership and profit and loss of products. It's very important, to have this understanding to cascade objectives, for example, through KPIs and OKRs. Um, and essentially, make everybody accountable to the customer, because otherwise you tend to develop this type of internal monopolies and sclerotic organizations where organizational debt can be accumulated very easily. Okay, so that's the problem. Finally, it's also important to understand taxonomies from the maturity perspective, right? So understanding that something is in incubation phase versus in a sustain and growth phase. So these are some of the testimonials that we have from the training. So of course, I'm not going to read the testimonials, but to give you an idea that we had lots of enthusiastic participants to the prototype version of this course that we have run in Barcelona more or less 1 month ago at the network conference. Some of them were consultants, some others were pioneering innovators, others were venture builders, others are, again, consultants and product designers. So for all of them, and for you, I'm sure there was something important in this course, because this course is really about the basics. No, it's really about um, understanding the scaffold of what's happening and understanding how you can resonate with the market in this very, incredible, challenging times. So before we switch into the questions, I want to also share quickly this slide, because of course, for the attendees of this webinar, there is some perk. So if you look at this QR, or and I mean, I will show this slide at the end again, but essentially you can get a 10% discount just by using the SSP dash WAEB code on Eventbrite. That's it for the introduction. I'm happy to get some questions from the audience.
Yeah,
So
thank thank
that's it.
you. Thank you, Simone. Thank you for taking us through it. I think in terms of being a student of such a program myself, I've really learnt a lot. So I do hope that everyone who joins, I'm sure will benefit from it. So we had people joining from many countries as well. I'm happy to say. So we had people from Germany, Dubai, Italy, and so on. And we have two comments. So let me first take it up one after the other. So the first comment, okay, first query. So have you considered unifying the Wadley map, ecosystem matrix, value motivation metrics, all the tools used in these trainings into a single piece of software that provides users with a comprehensive step-by-step interface? Additionally, integrating AI capabilities for data scraping, such as gathering company information, market studies, trend analysis, KPIs, and so on. It could, be a fascinating evolution of these tools.
I mean, yes, I share the fascination for this idea. And I want to just, by the way, say one thing again. It's sometimes it's very hard to convey how complicated and challenging is to interact with markets today. So, for example, there are companies we work with that had, deploying massive investments, and even those companies with such a deep understanding become very how can I say, impatient on getting returns and getting feedbacks from the market. So one thing I must say is that, of course, tools are important. It's of course possible to scrape information, use AI. We have been, thinking about making software versions of these tools many times. But at the end of the day, for me, what is important is that people understand that you need to do some deeper work on this. And
Mm.
uh, using our canvases is fine. You can use our canvases, but it's important that you understand the key ideas behind the canvases. So, for example, in the very early days of the work we did with platform design, a lot of people I was talking to, um, you know, went to the course, did the canvases, but left with a massive insight that was designing for ecosystems and not just coming there with your technology idea and then embedding it into a platform and push it to the market, trying to make it work. And at the end of the day, it's much more important that you understand the mental model that to design a platform, you start from maps and you start from understanding what the interactions are happening in the ecosystems, instead of just going there and throwing your technology ideas to the market. That was enough. I mean, that was a massive insight that has probably saved lots of money and lots of effort to those people, much more than the canvases. Having said that, I'm also keen to understand that, keen to, let's say, resonate with the idea that having technological tools that can help apply these mental models is going to be very helpful, especially because, as we said, again, this is no more one thing. I think that one team needs to do. It's something that every team needs to do, and so even teams with little time or little money or little energy will have to do that. And so any technology that, let's say, reduces the barriers and makes it easy to do, it's going to be helpful. So, of course, the answer is yes. We have been thinking about this, and that's something also that we are working on these very days.
Thank you. Thanks, Simone. I just want to also remind everybody watching, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to post them in the comment section. So I'll take it up with Simone as well. We've got one more comment. I'll just read it. So it says, it's interesting to observe how the business models of various SaaS companies and API providers dynamically evolve. It feels like a whole new skill set is required by semi technical people to navigate this complexity and select which tools to use and integrate. Example, Twitter killing its API a while back, Slack this week changing message retention on free plans, Basecamp this week introducing timesheet capability which will disrupt many companies that integrated with them.
Yeah, yeah. What was the question more specifically? Did you
It was
capture?
just a comment. It was
Yeah,
just a comment, yeah. If you maybe want to reflect on it, yeah.
yeah. I mean, my comment is that, yeah, of course, the landscape is in flux. So products are
Mm-hmm.
changing and adapting, and lots of the products that we see on the market are, let's say, trying to become the pivotal element in the
Mm-hmm.
customer space. So some of them, which are a bit more confident, let's say, can at some point enact changes in, for example, how you manage certain things, or pushing the users to adopt new approaches or new workflows, because
Mm-hmm.
they believe that they sit in the middle of the customer workflow and can kind of influence that. But in general,
Mm-hmm.
what I must say is that um, with cost of integration going down, cost of software development going down, what we can expect is a broader and ever stronger, let's say, capability of the user to set its own workflow. So in
Mm-hmm.
the past, we have been used to users that kind of decide to adopt a certain technology and inherit the workflow. What we probably looking forward in the future is users and customers and companies that are much more capable to design their own workflow and take the pieces that they need from the market, sometimes even just through APIs. Okay, so for example,
Mm-hmm.
yesterday I was reading a piece from Scott Brinker where
Mm-hmm.
he said that AI is going to generate a lot of more demand for APIs, right? Because agents are going to use these APIs to build integrations for their customers. And when you are, let's say, when your interface with the market is primarily an API, the
Mm.
changes you are going to be able to enact are much less important. So it's much less about the UX, because the UX is going to be built by the user on its own. It's much more about, for example, the pricing, or the capabilities that the software that you bring into the market can actually provide. So, again, things are in flux, but in general, I must say that the power is shifting ever more into the
Mm.
hands of the user.
Got it. Thank you. I'll go forward since we're a bit tight on time. So, firstly, we've got some, previous users of the canvas as well who have joined us, and they've, told us how they feel. They feel really positive and sort of fantastic having used it. One of the questions that came, so capabilities should be intended as technology. For example, improved handwriting OCR or possible features, example, camera scans for digitalization.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. When we speak about capabilities internally to an organization, you need to think about them as I would say, uh, as much as possible independent products that can be sold on the market, let's say. And these are market-facing units, but also maybe enabling capabilities. So, for example, you can have manufacturing capability in a industrial company, or you can have logistics, shipment capabilities. So when the question, if the question is if a specific feature like an OCR, reading OCR, can be considered a capability, the answer is of course yes. Uh, the question boils down into how much that can this be productized in something that has its own P&L, for example, right? So, this is the difference, for example, between, let's say, if you look at the two levels that we discussed in the presentation, we discussed a unit and team topology, for example, right? A unit topology will tell you have a certain order of coherence in an organization that is a product unit, okay? And inside this product unit, you will have several teams. So maybe OCR capabilities, so something that a company that has developed a particular advanced OCR capability, can be more like a platform team in a product that maybe does, I don't know, financial accounting by reading receipts or whatever, right? So that's just to say, there's no a good answer to this. Both can be capabilities. So it can be that a small capability like this can be considered as a unit, or it can be maybe a team, a specific team in a larger unit, depending on what you are bringing to the market. But that's the idea. The idea is you have to understand those things, and you have to give them the right, let's say, artifact, so that you can manage your organization in a coherent way.
Got it. Thank you. I'll go forward. So,
Yeah.
Simone, you mentioned small companies are on the rise. So, how does new small companies relate to the composition of independent teams in larger organizations? So, he's also commented. So, for me, I would consider that the independent team in a company would treat other teams in the same company almost as their other clients. It should be the same mentality. Does this observation align?
Yes, 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 because essentially the market. So when it's so easy to interface with the market, the result is that the market gets into the organization much more radically. Okay, so it's much easier for you, for example, to say this internal capability that I have, maybe I can open it up to the market. Okay, so similarly, the units in your organization will develop much more autonomy in creating their own products and roadmaps and managing the profit and loss. Okay, so once you have two teams inside an organization, okay, they should treat each other as peers and as customers or partners. So, for example, when we speak about our organizational topology, and a topology is not just the type of units you have, but also the type of interactions they have. And so, for example, in the trio, the typical interactions we see are contracts, and they can be service contracts. So, for example, you can have one unit buying services from another unit, or it can be partnering. So, for example, they can co-invest into creating a new product. Okay, these are the type of agreements typically that we have in an organization. Of course, some cases you have certain specific units like support platforms inside an organization that for them it may not be a good idea to contract all the time, the services, because maybe they give services that are so common inside your organization and can also, for example, have a positive impact on time to market, that maybe you don't want to mess with contracts every time I use, for example, an internal developer platform, or every time I use the internal AI engine, for example. Maybe you don't want to have contracting all the time. Maybe those are capabilities that you can package a little bit as a basic enabling system that is available to everybody, and maybe it's paid by everybody. Maybe you can use different mechanisms such as revenue-based pricing. So maybe you can say the units in the organization pay a percentage of their revenue to sustain the common services, a little bit like a country would do or a city would do. No, for example, to use the uh, roads, you don't pay every time you go into the road, but you just pay a flat or a you know parametric or a tax amount on your earnings or something like that. Now, these are similar dynamics that we see inside organizations.
Thank you. Thanks, Simone. So, as we wait for more comments, I wanted to ask you something from my side. So, just wanted to understand, let's say, for the program that Boundaryless is conducting, is there an ideal participant for this program who can benefit from it? And should they have certain skill level or certain expertise to be able to take this program?
Okay, of course, the program is designed mainly with people that have two types, I would say, of responsibilities. One is the strategic responsibility of product innovation, marketing, sales. So actually, improving the company reach to the market and creating better products. So typically we're talking about CMOs, CPOs, head of products, head of strategy, CEOs in certain smaller companies, and so on. But on the other hand, of course, there is a massive implication in terms of organizational structure. So everybody that is involved in organizational development, so typically HR or org development, when the company is mature enough to have an org development function, they should be looking into this, because again, the point is there's no more disconnection between technology and business, organization and product. We're talking about the merge and fusion of those topics. So everybody that has responsibility in terms of business, technology, and organization could be interested to this. So, for example, even engineering leaders should be interested in this, because at the end of the day, engineering leaders are impacted by how do I separate my teams to develop and deliver the capabilities. But it's also interesting for finance people, because maybe if you're looking into how your organization is spending too much money and not generating enough impact, is because you have to develop a different way to account the cost of the things you do. So the total cost of ownership of solutions, different ways to enact the P&L, and so on. So that's typically, let's say, the scope of people that could be interested in this. Most of all, for sure, people that are dealing with products and organization.
Got it. And are there any pre-reads or preparation that they need to have in order to attend it?
There's no preparation needed. So of course it helps if you are familiar with boundaryless frameworks. So for example, our former trainees, the thousands of trainees that we have, could be interested in taking this course to really, I would say, get to the next level. Right? It's more like a systemic thinking and moving from one product into systems, right? So that's
Yeah.
essentially one potential thing. But there's no need to have been going through the typical trainings from Boundless, so the boot camp, the platform design boot camp, or the Trio master class. These are not
Yeah.
needed. There could be excellent follow-ups as well.
Mm-hmm.
In general, I would say it could be helpful to have a little bit of understanding of the area of team structures and
Sure.
product priorities, and also a little bit. It could be interesting for the people that attend to peek into the idea of wordlay maps, which
Yeah.
look very complex from the outside, but once you try to do some work, they are very easy. So, of course, there are some readings in our blog that people can also look into.
Yeah.
But generally, I would say there is no massive requirement for people participating.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So we've got one more comment. So it says, feels like the need for organizations to foster their dynamic capabilities are increasingly important, like T's comment and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've read this, and yeah, I must
Mm.
say that yeah, for sure, the idea of dynamic capability reconfiguration is essential. One thing that is maybe more characterizing this phase and our approach is that we believe that this should largely be achieved through self-organization and interfaces. So it's not that somebody should have the responsibility to rearrange capabilities,
Yeah.
but you should be using customer demand and market signal, capture
Mm-hmm.
it, and use it to drive your investments into contracts, essentially into investment contracts or seeding new micro enterprises and so on, and let the players in the organization to self-organize around the new opportunities. That's essentially the bigger difference. The big difference is moving from thinking that you can reorganize from the top into increasingly recognizing that it's a self-managed, self-organized process, and to really achieve this, you need interfaces instead of processes. Interfaces, I mean, clear service catalogs, clear business models, clear agreements, versus a function that is responsible to maybe rearrange capabilities based on strategy analysis or something like that. Leave it to the customers to talk to your organization, leave it to your teams to capture customer signal.
Got it. Okay. So before I read the next comment, just again wanted to highlight, if anybody has any feedback, please do share it in the comments. We're happy to take it up. So, one sort of positive, I guess, feedback that we've received. One of the aspects I truly admire is the open source philosophy in material sharing. I believe this approach to knowledge sharing is in the right path, and that's why I highly recommend it to my colleagues. So, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. Maybe Simone, as we come towards the end of the session, right, just wanted to ask you a little bit more about the format of the program itself. So, how does it work? It's online. So, how does it work? How many days is it? How can people get to know more information about the program itself?
Okay, it's going to be 3 sessions, 4 hours. So in total, will be 12 hours. There will be a mix of lectures and exercises. So a lot of work you can do on your own case study. And indeed, there is also the possibility to purchase a preparation session where we will help the attendees to prepare the case study, and potentially also a follow-up session where we will help our customers, our trainees, to strategize on the result and understand what next steps they could start taking. So, as a recap, 3 sessions online, 4 hours. mainly based on lectures, exercises, and reviews. This is a format that has been working very well in our trainings. We have been training more than 1,000 people all over the world, and has always been great feedback. So we're going to use that. And again, you can bring your own stuff, you can bring your own problems, your own case studies. Otherwise, you can play with fictional ones. And there are also the possibilities to purchase preparation session to prepare your case study and post training session to strategize on the results.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm
Anything?
sorry, I didn't hear you for a second.
No problem. Yeah. Anything else you want to share from your side, Simone? If anybody has any other comments, please do share it. Meanwhile, anything else from your side, Simone, that we should keep in mind?
Not really. I want to share again the screen with the discount because I
Yeah.
think it's interesting for people to get this opportunity to have a 10% discount. In general, I must say that the course has been priced in a very accessible way. It's the first prototype of the course, at least as an online session. We had this as a offline, and it
Offline.
was great. So, I encourage everybody to get in touch if you have any questions, if you want to purchase team tickets. There is also a possibility. So, really, feel free to drop an email, and I will be there for you to comment and discuss and potentially help you understand if this course fits with your needs or not.
Got it. Thank you. I hope that everybody listening has scanned this QR code. So thank you, Simone. Yeah, so thank you for the session itself. Thank you for all the listeners who have joined in. We know it's a Friday, so we really appreciate it. And we hope that you can benefit from this program itself. Like Simone said, in case of any queries, do reach out to us on any of our media platforms or comment on the post or email us, whichever is convenient for you. And we'll be happy to take it forward. And thank you. Thanks, Simone, for taking us through the session and helping us with the AMA. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Pretty excited to have you at the course. And until we speak again, remember to think boundaryless.
Thank you. Bye.